it's been great working with Graham and Annalise, who've really fed into this, and they've already kind of shown you quite a bit of the stuff that I'll try and go into a bit more detail once these get set up. Yeah, as I said, I'm Jenny Ward. I'm at the Department for Transport, and I'm the Deputy Director for Future of Aviation, which is covering all the kind of like drones aspects. Well, I'll kick off anyway. We've said a few of the things anyway. It's the why government consider these technologies important for the UK. But look, you all know more than anyone else out there how useful drones can be. And there are many different perspectives for it. But from a government perspective, it's particularly these three things. It's the benefits to the UK citizens by providing better services and society benefits, the potential to save taxpayers' money, the PwC report, which you all will know, that's £22.5 billion a year that they think could be delivered savings through drone use. A large proportion of that is public sector and can be to the taxpayer. The societal benefits, you know, you can have connectivity, the remote connections, that type of, as well as offering services that people didn't have before, the medical deliveries, etc., that type of thing. But that is obviously a very clear government focus. The environmental benefits, we've got Jet Zero, we've got decarbonisation targets, and the fact that drones and eVTOL, which we do cover in this, are both also kind of zero emission operations when they're in flight, and they also have the potential for removing emissions by replacing things that would have been replaced on maybe road or potentially some other kind of flight as well, which are even with things like SAF and hybrid vehicles, and even if we're talking about electric cars, which do also have the ability to produce kind of air pollutants as they're heavy tyres. There have been benefits from not just greenhouse gases, there's also air pollutants as well. Things like noise, also there's some potential there being in different areas, but there's obviously an area that you do continue need to work on. It's the green economic growth through jobs, exports and investments. Again, good old PwC's report of the up to £45 billion to the economy in the UK by 2030 and potentially up to 650,000 jobs. But I always think it's good to focus on, like, you'll know your benefits, but from our from the government perspective, these are our top three reasons as to why we're interested in drones. So next slide, and examples really help. We've got some of this stuff that we actually put out in the advanced autonomy drones document, or the drones ambition statement. It's Renfrewshire Council, it's that expansions, no cherry pickers, you don't have to close roads, you don't have to put someone up anywhere unsafe, and their estimation just from Renfrewshire Council is £4 million a year that they could save from using drones for inspections of their buildings across their portfolio. And I don't suspect that that's a local authority that has a particularly high need. That's quite an example of just one. So imagine how you're selling that to taxpayers and say, why would you not want to be using these things, decreasing the risks to individuals? And then on to the next, as I talk about those examples of environmental benefits, this is Wing Racers delivery up in Orkney, working with Royal Mail a couple of years back in 2021. Not only can the drones fly when planes can't, it's an over 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions compared to the previous use of either on land or by plane. So next slide. And then when we talk about economic growth, there's different ways of thinking about it. You think about those jobs being produced, but here then this is an example of the drones being used for flood risk prevention. They now have a year-round contract. It's RUAS, it's headquartered in Newport, so it's all jobs based in the UK. They've got that year-round contract with the Met Office. And when we look at floods back in 2020, there was over £300 million worth of economic losses from those floods. Sometimes hard to remember when we have floods, given we have such different weather all the time now, but that is a real saving that you can have by having that real-time information from drones to allow decision makers to decrease those economic losses. So thank you for bearing with me. We're telling you all the stuff that you already know, but I think it is always really important. So the more we can tell stories about individual examples, And the more we can talk about how it affects everyone, it's not just about good for a certain business or whatever, it affects every UK citizen, because they are affected by greenhouse gases, air pollution, paying taxes, and also economic growth. So government's approach to supporting this industry is trying to set some ambition and leadership to set the direction, recognising we need to work in partnership and very much learning by doing, because we don't want to sit and theorise, we want to get out and see how it works. So what have we done to date? So a couple of years ago, we had Flight Paths to the Future. So this was a strategic framework following the pandemic, setting out for the whole aviation industry to say, what do we want the next 10 years to be focusing on? And it had 10 top priorities. One of them was related to capturing the potential of new technology and its uses. And that's in that document is when we said, do you know what we need to do? So we need to work really formally and officially with the drone industry. It said we've also got to work out and set direction by putting it to paper. It's no very good at just talking about it. Let's actually put pen to paper and come up with industry. That was where the ambition to set up the Future of Flight Industry Group came from, and to publish a Future of Flight action plan. And it was building on, as I talked to you on the drones ambition statement, which set out a bit more detail about the uses of commercial drones by 2030. So yes, as I mentioned, right, what have we done? We have a couple of weeks ago published the Future of Flight Action Plan, and we set out the 5 strategic outcomes. And to talk about this is about a vision, and it was agreed between government, the regulator, obviously very much the move, CAA, industry represented by Annalise and Graham, and representing all of your views as members, to bring these together as a clear set deadline of when we think these things need to happen to make sure we can achieve those benefits. The first one being demonstrations this year in non-segregated airspace of BVLOS operations, and moving by 2027 to making them scaled commonplace and much more widespread. Also, obviously, it covers, as Graham mentioned, we had 2 pathways in it. The other one focusing on eVTOL, about the first piloted flight in 2026, moving to more routine operations, and then focusing on autonomy. Now, autonomy also plays to eVTOL, but obviously is very much embedded in everything that we do with drones. In the document there, it's not exhaustive of everything, but it's about setting a framework. It sets the principles for delivery with respective roles, and that's got a chronology of specific plans of the activities that need to be done by the different organisations. So how do we do this? We need to make sure that we're working together. As we've talked about, we've got the Future of Flight Industry Group. This is the current membership. It's been going for about a year. We are looking, as we've gone from this development of the action plan, as we move to delivery, to make sure we've got that membership right, and that we're feeding back that information, because all very well publishing an action plan, we need to make sure together we have transparency how we are going at delivering that. So we are making sure we're getting feedback through industry, through all yourselves, and the more you can provide that, we need to understand the challenges that you're experiencing, but also how you're delivering on the bits that are industry focused, related to the, if it's be it detect and avoid, delivering electronic conspicuity, etc., that type of things. We do need that 2 ways of conversation, because we cannot just do it top down. That's never going to work. And we do have a good range of people there. So moving on to the next, we recognise it's not just DFT. It's good to see that we've got colleagues from other government departments here in the room, but we do have to work across government. And there are 2 ways of doing it. Yes, for delivering certain things, be that related to the DLUC, Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, related to planning, be it related to users. When we talk about the Department of Health and Social Care, there's fantastic opportunities in the NHS for drone use, but there's a mixture there of delivering aspects that we need to realise these ambitions, and also real users. And one of the things we've got in the action plan is taking much more of a role of using public procurement to demonstrate those use cases for drones, and then they can spread out. Because as I talk about, what's one of the most important benefits for government, that taxpayer saving, the improved public sector benefits as well. And that's all. We also can't just sit here working in the UK, but we've got to make sure we've got interoperability. 2 of our main organisations that we work with are the US Federal Aviation Administration and EASA. Obviously, there's the ICAO as well, which is much more widespread, but we are really making sure we're working closely on standards there to make sure that manufacturers and the way that things are being used can be as close as possible, or deviating where there is a really clear specific UK need and differences to those approaches that are needed. But we do need to make sure we are not just being an island. We do need to make sure that we are creating a framework that works for all of the manufacturers and the UK businesses, so that we can maximise the export opportunities as well. As I mentioned as well, we can't just theorise this, we do need to learn by doing, and it's been fantastic that we've had the Future Flight Challenge programme that's been going for the last few years. From £125 million, it has generated over £380 million worth of industry investment. There's 225 organisations that have been involved. That's over 78 projects, and a lot of the organisations involved, about half, have been SMEs, which is fantastic. Now, what's been really important about this, it's not just been over going and demonstrating. We've had ourselves, DFT, but also the CAA, the regulator, embedded in all of that throughout, so they can help learn how we make sure those policies, procedures, regulation, and then, as necessary, legislation is getting that information by firsthand, getting all the information, sharing that information with industry. And we're going to have to continue to do that over the next few years as we move from that demonstration part to scale. So moving to the next bit of like, okay, that's all the theory, but let's focus a bit more when we talk about that UAS pathway. What are we actually going to be doing? Now, this is it in more detail. I'm not going to look at it in every bit. And also you've got colleagues from the CAA who'll go into a bit more detail. But I think the first thing that I wanted to say, there are millions of things you could put on this. We didn't put everything on it. It's not exhaustive. It doesn't mean that we won't be doing things that aren't on here. But these are some of the major activities that we are planning for, we are doing, and we are taking forward. And they are on the operational capabilities of gradually moving basically from longer, larger areas and more integrated spaces where drones can operate in beyond visual line of sight. So it shows you those stepping stones, it shows you the pathways. And one of the main points of this is making sure that there is the ability for investors to see this as a key route to moving to commercialisation. We're beginning to see that that is happening. We are moving from the innovation stage to that commercialisation stage. Some good news recently about various kind of drone operating companies managing to get large levels of investment on the market for here in the UK. So obviously it's demonstrating that we are getting it in the right position. We've then split it into three areas of recognising we need technology development to support airspace integration, access and regulation to make it easier, but also building an industry, making that from a user perspective as well. And I think one of the things that's probably worth saying is about making sure that the CAA has enough resources to do that. We have, over the past few years, significantly increased the support to the CAA from government to increase the number of people working on this. And next year, we have fully funded all the activities that have been requested to make sure we take these things forward. And we're paying that from the government beginning, because we recognise this is an industry that is growing. So there's at least a kind of £15 million going into the CAA just focused on future of flight for next year. So that's a bit about the UAS pathway. And then, but it's also recognising there's bits that are kind of common across all of what we call future of flight. These we'll call our building blocks. All of them need to make sure we've got, we bring people along with us. We need to focus on that industrialisation, the skills, the pipeline, making sure these are new sets of skills, and it's different types of people who've often worked in aviation. How are we supporting that? How are we making sure we're getting the right pathway for them, the journeys, but also the right numbers, and making sure we're making the most of UK talent. The digital infrastructure, we're using a lot of communication stuff. We need to make sure we've got the bandwidth for that as well. So we need to be making sure we're working with colleagues across government. Standardisation, we talk about harmonisation and interoperability, and autonomy. We've talked a lot about AI and autonomy in the past year or so. That's not going to go away. And this is a real opportunity we've got here. They're the buzzwords of the moment. And all you guys working on drone, you've just been doing it. You haven't been saying, bang on this the buzzword, but there's a real opportunity here to demonstrate to people this is how flying autonomously, using where we can move and use AI as needed, as relevant, and it's actually showing the benefits. It's not the scary thing. It's not about ChatGPT. It's actually about doing some things as well. So there's the recognising, there's the building blocks that cut across everything that we need to do. So just going into a little bit more, just really simple. Look, we need that technology to support airspace integration. We don't want any unidentified flying objects. Drones are not scary things. They are not bad. It's not counter drones. It's not bad and good drones. They're drones. They're vehicles. They're aircraft. We don't talk about bad or good cars, do we? It's about making sure that an aircraft in the sky, people can know what it is, whose it is, and it doesn't hit anything. It's all about getting integrated airspace management and also providing that safety and security for the public and also for UK security of allowing drones flying in the sky. So we are having those trials, we are taking those things forward. Some of those trials are kicking off just now. We've had the CAA sandbox, that's just the second tranche has just closed for applications. So we are demonstrating them now, and that's part of delivering for 2024. We recognise those people who currently are applying for drone operations. It can be not as smooth as you might want, right? I think we're allowed to say that. We need to make that to be quicker, easier for everyone involved, for those applying and also for the regulator to assess them. And there's a load of work going on this. We don't want to make sure it's slow or get anything wrong. We do still need to assess these things, but there's the digitising the assessment, there's the pre-risk defined assessments. PDR1 actually I think was released just a few weeks ago, so we are managing to deliver on that. SORA moving to that as well will also hopefully make it much easier to be assessing the operations quicker, not taking months, decreasing the resources needed for those applying, and also building the evidence base as well. So the last one, as we talk about, it's about building an industry that works for the UK's and communities. And this is a real role that I think government needs to play. It's about public acceptance and community integration. They will feel much more confident if they feel that there is appropriate regulation if they've got drones flying above their houses. But we also need them as users, but also as people who are going to be overflown and be accepting these. And this is another reason why we think it's a really key from a government perspective to focus on those taxpayer savings and focus on those emergency service uses to sell that story, which allows to open up a lot more of commercial opportunities as well. So to make sure we do that, we do need to be setting our pilot competencies, the flight worthiness, product standards so people can feel safe about the drones that they've got, making sure we've got that noise policy right. It's not being really annoying, the privacy aspects, getting that planning guidance, and also moving to the regulatory frameworks for autonomous operations. Now, I have the joy of doing things at the high level. You're going to be talking to the colleagues at CAA who are going to go into a lot more detail about the things that are being delivered, particularly to meet those strategic outcomes 1 and 3, which are the ones you're mostly interested in. So we can all collectively deliver that commonplace BVLOS operations by 2027. But what I would really implore you to do is we need to keep this communication going. We do have Lisa and Graham who love to feed in your views, and it's fantastic. But the more that we can get those in the sense of we're doing this to make these things happen that we set out here, the better. Let's just keep those conversations going, because that's the only way that we are going to work together to sell the story of the benefits that drones can offer, but also achieve those benefits as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. There was one question I just saw. Is the presentation available to be copied out? Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
So whoever that was, yeah, we can make it available. You can just leave your name with Elena or with Mohammed. Have we got any others, or are we going to take them at the end after the CAA?
I mean, if that's all right with you, there are a few questions, but I think if we can bundle together with the CAA, that might be just as appropriate. So, yeah, sorry, Kevin and Callum.